4 or 5. We have a quorum, 6, so we'll go ahead and call the regular EDC meeting to order. And I have no particular opening comments, so we'll just move right into city update if you want, Brent.
Good evening, everyone. Real quickly, we've got some highlights that are coming further down in the agenda, but our October sales tax number, I haven't been able to compare it yet, but it was $187,086. So I still think that's strong. Hopefully starting the new year on a good note. As far as another city update, it kind of dovetails with Joe's, Mr. Shulsky's project with the palm, kind of the palm tree replacement plan and looking at that palm management. But I do have pricing for medullas and some sylvesters out front in the median. And if you, the two suggestions by our landscape company was either doing them in a row, and you can do them in different heights, or you can do them in the same height, or do them, do a cluster of 3. So you'd have one that's tall, one that's medium, one that's shorter, either way. And if it's medullas and you go with a cluster, it's about $25,000 installed. That's a total of 6 trees. If you go with sylvesters in a line, you can do, I think they're about $12,000 for all 6 of them. So that's where we're at. I haven't made any choices on that. I know it's kind of dovetail with the palm management plan, and talked with Joe about that. That's further down the agenda, but just so you're aware, we do have some pricing that's available. So,
and remind me, Brent, did we approve a budget amount for that, or is that to be determined?
You approved removal. That was $900, and I thought you approved $20,000.
That's what I was thinking, but I couldn't remember. So, okay.
But I wasn't anxious to go out and spend that in light of, some other things. So we can, we can revisit that.
Okay.
And that's basically it. Rest of it we'll be covering further on down.
Okay, good deal. We'll go through director comments, and I'll just start here at kind of the bottom of my screen, which is Thomas.
Yes, I got a few things. Okay, the fiber internet, he ran into some issues with the potential financing and is now revisiting that. It's been going slow because of COVID and people working at, half staffs and whatnot, but he's moving forward. It's just going slow because he needs to be thinking about bank financing as opposed to there's a government program he was hoping to get on, because number one, he couldn't get on it, and number two, it was, pocket change compared to what he needed anyway. So, but it's moving forward, at least from what he's going to present to us. What he's looking, we are waiting for him to tell us what he needs from us, and then we can make a decision. I talked to Centerpoint. I don't know if you remember, but Ronnie, on one of the last meetings, he asked us if we should look into getting those power lines into the ground about the parking lot up front, because those palms are getting, they're getting close. So we need to make a decision whether to trim them, cut them, or bury the cable. And I talked to them, and Centerpoint, and they, funny enough, they knew about this. It's been on the agenda before, at least with them. But then it's basically what it boils down to is that the city needs to pay $30,000 to $40,000, and then it can happen. So I don't know if you want to put that on the agenda for next time, and I can do some legwork in the meantime.
And is that based on an explicit or a written proposal from Centerpoint?
No. Okay, if we tell them we're willing to pay the 30 to 40, then they will go ahead and do the exact. But that's the number that was given to the city before. Or proposed.
Okay.
How
Brent,
far,
do you-
how far does that go? I mean, is it just from the front of the city and just where the palms are, or how far would that extend?
Well, that is yet to be determined, but my understanding is that it is just that front portion. If it goes to the bridge, that will be a max, but it's just the front portion.
So I guess we can't take action on it, but I guess what we should do is probably dig up the old, before our next meeting, is dig up the old proposal. And to your point, Joe, just clarify exactly what we'd be getting for that. And then we can, and whether it's 30 or 40, and if that's subject to change by the time it's done, or if whatever we commit to is the number, and then we can all take a look at it before the next meeting and bring it up as an official agenda item for approval if that's the way we want to go. But I'm like you, I'd like to understand exactly what that means, and then also think through any other implications if there are any complications from burying it that we're not thinking about, or ancillary costs that would be associated with that, so that we capture them all at the same time. I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts, but
Yeah, it's okay. I can coordinate that then ahead of the next meeting, and we get it on the agenda.
yeah.
If I add some comments, this is Brent, on the bearing of that electrical service coming in. I think originally there was also discussion about relocating it over to the corner of the parking lot where the body shop currently resides, and then going underground there and coming in with I assume a directional bore of some sort, and then they make the necessary hookups. And I thought it was to get it actually across the other side of the bridge. And the initial ballpark that I remember, and I think Ron Richards was involved in that, was over $500,000 to do that.
Really?
So it was a relocation and a bury. The problem in trying to just bury it where they're at right now is you're going to have to go underneath the palms, the water line, any other buried utilities that are there. It would be I think it would be complicated, but not in the.
Well, I can verify that. But this guy I talked to was a guy called Curtis Newberry, and he was familiar with this because it's been on his agenda before. So he's at the center point. He's
Yeah, but $500,000 is a horse of a different color. That's yeah.
Yes.
And it was indicated to me that they really weren't interested in doing it just out of being helpful, because it doesn't provide any more service. They're not going to make any more money on it. It's just a convenience relocation. Well,
maybe we'll turn it around, and I'll ask him if he can send us a copy of what he had the last time. So make it work that way.
That are located at the entrance of Clear Lake Road. Last year we started the process of not trimming the fruit off of it and off of those. And when you trim the fruit, it forces them to grow. And so we're kind of in the landscaping company is aware of that extensively, and so they've cut back on cutting the fruit. So we're trying to slow down that growth to buy some more time. But eventually, yes, they'll be up in there.
Okay. The last thing I have is roads and drainage. We had a very good, very educational meeting with a conference call with League City a few days ago. Essentially, we've been driven by the city engineers telling us how we're going to do things, which we thought was correct. Turns out we are probably over engineering and overdoing this by a lot. There's a lot of ways we can save a lot of money by basically employing somebody that has a good experience with this, going out and telling us this road needs to do something with this one, you don't. Here you can just mill and overlay. You don't need to do all this bore samples and all this engineering as if you're building a new road every time. You can do it a lot easier. So we're going to have a follow-up with them probably next week. And then, yeah, hopefully we can go forward with a proposal for Narcissus and Blue Point.
It does make sense. And keeping in mind that it wasn't 30 years ago, I don't think that these were all shell roads. So, you know.
Yep.
Great, Thomas. Thank you very much. Amanda, do you have comments?
I don't have anything tonight, thanks.
Great. Joe?
Do you want me to cover off on kind of the update with the Palm?
Yeah, if you don't mind, since it's not a formal agenda item, good time to cover it.
Yeah. So I had contacted about 4 or 5 different arborists. And so Matt Latham was the first one that Brent and I had actually got in the golf cart, drove around the island, kind of hit him up for some of his knowledge. I would say Matt was more of a chemical guy. Like, you have a problem with a tree, he's going to come in, solve that problem for that particular tree. He wasn't really a planner, I would say. And Brent, just chime in here if your interpretation is different than mine. One of the suggestions, though, that he had, which was just kind of parlays right into what we were talking about, was there's a growth inhibitor called Shortstop, and that could be used on the palm trees as you enter the island, and that would slow down the growth. Now, again, probably would have to get a little bit more consulting on this and how this growth inhibitor works and how much, you need to put in, into the ground to make it work. And not sure how much it slows the growth of the tree, but there are chemicals, and that could be a less expensive issue, or a less expensive maybe alternative than the, $30,000 that you might spend relocating.
Well, I think, Joe, not to interrupt, it would sound like, although it's not an official agenda item, it would certainly make sense to go ahead and see if we could solicit a formal proposal for that would be calibrated appropriately, so that we can see what that looks like as we assess these other options at the next meeting for burying the lines. And obviously, if we're going to shortstop or slow the growth of the trees, we need to do it before they're too tall.
Right.
So I would suggest that we go ahead and kind of ahead of everything else, go ahead and figure that out. I think that's kind of an independent initiative. Yeah.
Right. And so just to finish off, so we met with Matt, and he kind of gave us some different chemical suggestions. But he really, like I said, I didn't get the feeling like he was really a guy for long-term planning. Then I made connections with Heather McKnight, and she's the League City arborist. And Heather was fantastic. Unfortunately, Brent couldn't meet with her, so I met with her, and she was just a wealth of knowledge. She knew so much, talked about, how we're trimming trees in our parks, and I know Ronnie had some issues with, when he was trying to sell the house, because he wanted to look over the water, and he wanted some of those trees trimmed. So she gave me a lot of input on that. One of the great things she did provide was a contact, Susan Roth. She's a certified arborist. She's the one I sent all that information on. Brent and I both met with Susan, and she comes highly recommended from the League City arborist. She goes, if you have palm trees, she goes, this is the girl you want to talk to. She handles, a lot of stuff in Galveston when they're having issues with their palm trees. She was the one that was handling it. So we were really anxious to meet with Susan. We met with her. Again, she's submitted some pricing. I was kind of taken aback. I didn't know if you guys have read through any of that, but it was pretty expensive just to even look at one tree. But I was trying to like, well, why don't you come back to us with more of a, proposal to do the whole island kind of thing. And I think what we need to do is just kind of do a deep dive into what she's given to us, and then maybe go back to her with some suggestions or what our budget is, and then see, maybe it's not analyzing every tree on the island. Maybe we take 4 parts of the island, analyze 4 different palm trees to get kind of a general rule of what's going on. And she can probably guide us on that. But anyhow, so if you can kind of dig into all her stuff over the next month, and then we'll take a deeper dive next month when it's on the agenda. So that brings you up to speed.
Well, thank you. And I didn't get a chance to review that information, so I don't know how expensive it is that you're talking about. Although when we start talking about $10,000 a palm to replace some of those that we're losing now, you kind of begin to realize what an asset we have that we need to preserve. And
right.
So it's expensive either way.
Right.
Thank you very much. Johnny?
Yeah, a couple of quick things. I don't think Brent mentioned it, but he's working with the state of Texas and the CARES Act to possibly get some sort of reimbursement back for the business retention grant that we did early in the year. So Brent, I guess you'll come back if you get some more information. I know that's probably a slow process, but
yeah, everything has to be in by Friday this week. I've got all the small business grants. I've got ADRE's time, and my next thing to check off my list is going to be to try to submit for reimbursement for the ads that ran as supporting items for that.
Yeah.
With the city with the state and uploading that, it kind of goes into a 3 or 4 day delay, and then they kick it back out and ask for more stuff. So try to stay on top of that. But my intent is try to get reimbursement for as much of that activity as possible, since it was unbudgeted. And
yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks for doing that.
On the city side, we don't have a tremendous amount of costs, and we've done a lot of things with donations, and it's been very minimal. It's just been a greater convenience to us. So
yeah. Also, it seems like all the businesses up front are super busy, which is good. Pandemic aside, obviously, but it looks like everything's rocking and rolling. That's good. Charles and I since the last meeting, had another good conference call with the owners and representatives from Galveston Bay Brewing. They came back with a couple of questions and items just yesterday, so it wasn't early enough to put on the agenda, but we'll probably have an agenda item next month, and possibly the need for a special meeting, but we'll see on that. And lastly, there's the Astros playoff game later. Not that that's super important, but the Astros are playing later, so go Astros. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Mike?
Yeah, hi, just a couple of comments. I've added 3 makeup concerts to Jammin' on Jarbo, for ones that have been previously canceled. And so this Saturday, October 17th, we'll have the Mambo Jazz Kings. Following the Saturday, November 7th, will be Jerry Diaz and Hannah's Reef. And then closing out on Saturday, November 21st, will be Hamilton Loomis. After this, we'll only have missed 1 concert for the whole series. So we've kind of caught up a little bit. Secondly, on the Aspen's mural, the renovations are continuing, should be done in about a month. And at that point, we'll be able to start narrowing down the artist and getting some renditions. So we're about a month away from getting started on that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then don't believe, was there anyone else that I've missed that's on? I don't see anyone else. So, okay. I don't see any unscheduled visitors.
I would like
And
to say
so-
one thing.
Yes,
I'm an unscheduled visitor.
okay.
This is Kurt on 623 West Shore. Just back on the discussion on the Aspens, I'm just concerned with the build out of the balcony and the stairs, is how that mural will interact with that building now. Because before it was kind of a blank canvas. And I'm not for it, against it, or either way. I'm just cautioning EDC that what are we doing and what's this going to look like for the front of the city. I mean, this is a major deal, and it changes the landscape of our city forever, and or at least for a long time. So I just just really interested in seeing what that looks like. That's all I had.
No, I would agree with that completely. It was one thing for it to be a blank canvas, and it is not that any longer. So I think it probably does change the consideration of it. I think it's
better just to paint the side of the building a color and not just a mural.
I think it would. I think it starts getting too busy and cluttered looking otherwise. But pardon me while I take care of a dog that should have been taken care of.
Kurt, I'd like to make a comment on that.
Sure.
Before, we still had the balcony on the side as well as a sidewalk down below with a fence. So it's changed from wood to palapa, and I think he's gonna use some wire cables so you can see through as good as possible. But what we're gonna try and do is have the artist relook at this whole thing and then give us a rendition of what they propose, so we can get a little feel for how it'll look. Because yes, it's not a blank canvas, it never was really on the side. The front's a little different. That's gonna be more of a blank, and those windows will be covered up with a sunscreen as well. So we'll get a closer look at what it might look like once we get everything finished.
Okay.
Well, I think the conclusion to all of that is that we just we want to move forward and all be very clear and in concurrence on what it is that we're getting, because it is so prominent, and it will be unavoidable. So I think we just need to look at it very carefully.
Well, did we have a budget for that project?
20,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then moving to the consent agenda, those items being the September 2020 financials, the September 2020 check register, and the minutes of our EDC regular meeting of September 8th, 2020. If everyone's had a chance to look at those, then I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve it.
Okay, Thomas makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? There being no discussion, then all in favor by show of hands?
Aye.
Okay, aye. It seems like it's approved unanimously. So then let's see, am I looking at I don't have the benefit of my split screen, so I'm at home here with the one screen. So the next item is the update and possible action. Okay, there we are, on the status of the east parking lot lighting plan and bid, which I know it's kind of one of those rolling things that I may try to figure out how to do a better job of capturing the history of some of these that go on for months and months. But Brent, if you want to kind of bring us up to speed and where we are and kind of what next steps need to be on that.
Certainly. We've completed the design work and the work for it's going to be a platform out there because of our BFE and electrical connections. And so that's all completed and designed. I can, with action from EDC, instruct Cobb Finley to send it out for bid and receive bids for that work. We've already identified the fixtures, courtesy of Mr. Milbauer. And now we have the electrical detailing and the actual structure done. So that's where we're at, and we can move forward with that if you'd like.
Okay, so then we really just.
I'll also remind you that, you know, we, in the past, and it kind of goes back with roads and drainage too. In the past, we've done projects and tried to, I guess, save money or clip some corners and stretch our dollars. And, you know, Cobb Finley, for good or for bad, is bringing forth, particularly in roads and drainage, more detailed engineered plans with plans to make sure that we don't have a similar situation that we had with the east parking lot, where what we thought was a condition wasn't, and then had to return for more and more money to do that. So
True. It's a fine line though, because now it seems like they're covering their, behinds a lot.
yeah, certainly that's what's happening. So
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do we have an understanding of what kind of light pollution the parking lot lights will generate? I mean, the only reason I ask is, like, I sometimes with a turtle club, on a barge, whatever it is, I mean, sometimes the lights from that parking lot are just drive you crazy. And I just, now obviously I wouldn't be affected. I don't live on that side of that, but I'm just wondering how much pollution, I kind of like things to be dark, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I believe
I think that's a very good question. Yeah.
that was all part of the consideration, and Don Milbauer handled those details. But we have a lighting survey where it shows where the light's supposed to go, and it's designed to be aimed down and not be shut off to the side where it's a problem for other people. So,
Is there any kind of standard by which that kind of light pollution is measured, though? Because I know there are, I don't know what there are dark sky cities and that mandate, and I'm not sure how that is measured, but there is some sort of particular measurement of how much light pollution you can get out of a fixture. So it is probably a question that we want to at least ask before we finalize it. I mean, it'd be a cheap question to get an answer to, I think.
Brent, do you have that survey that you can share with us that shows what the light,
yes.
how that's going to work and what it's going to look like? And
Yeah, I think I can send that out. It's several months old that we had.
well, I don't have it.
Right. I'll get it sent out to everyone.
If I could have it to look at, because I feel like I don't know what y'all are talking about.
Yeah, that's fine. And what would the question? What is the question? We want to know if it's limiting light pollution.
Yeah, I think there's some gradient that those things are measured by, and I think we'd want to know where we were standing, and it's from the Turtle Club at a 10 down to something else that
Parking lot at a 0.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there's something that we want to be targeting in between there. We want to know that we haven't overshot the mark, and you pull up in the front of even just driving by, you don't want to go, oh, that's a little garish. We're not trying to light up a stadium there. We're really just trying to create a safe condition in the parking lot. So I think we should err on the side of subtle. So I think it's a fair question to ask of Cobb Finley and to get some clarification.
Yeah, Cobb Finley didn't spec the lighting fixtures. Don Milbauer did from a previous project, so that's where we got all of that information. But that
Okay.
was done with his input. I wasn't involved in that. But yeah,
Okay.
certainly there's some kind of a grading system for that, and I will forward out what I have, and we can make a call.
Now, having said that, I'm not sure that it merits kind of delaying just sending it out for bid for another month. I mean, I assume we could always substitute another fixture if necessary, if we got the word back in the next week that we picked absolutely the wrong fixture, that we can call an audible and change that out or pick something else. But basically what you need is our authorization to at least go ahead and send it out for bid. And then we can get an order of magnitude cost on what we're talking about, because we don't have that right now. I mean, we have a guess, but we don't really have a bid.
Correct.
Yeah. So I would ask for a motion to authorize Brent to go ahead and put the Cobb Finley design drawings out for bid. Would someone like to make that motion?
Make a motion.
Make the motion.
So Mike makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Johnny seconds that. Is there any further discussion? Any questions?
If
Okay.
maybe, I wonder if there could be like a little addendum kind of thing that if they, as they're bidding this thing, if they have suggestions or recommendations to reduce light pollution. I mean, if I'm assuming that these people are the experts if they're in the light business.
It seems like Don brought this up just briefly, because I think he was erring on the side of subtle as well. I mean, I know he's not here, but I think he mentioned that too, which is
I thought that's why he picked these particular.
I think so too. Of course, we need to formally ask that, obviously. But yeah, when I saw the photometric survey, I don't know it, and you know, I couldn't tell. I don't understand what it was showing. But it seems like Don was wanting the same thing. So
Okay.
at least that.
Well, I think we'll just want to understand that as we come back with the pricing and make sure that that has been incorporated into what our final design is. So, so all in favor, aye, and show of hands.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Don't see any. So passes unanimously. Excellent. And so now item number 7, which is discussion and possible action on engineering design work for improvements to the Shell Bottom Park boat ramp, pier, and parking lot. And I know this has been something that's been out and under consideration for a long time, and Brent has the history, and so I'll just let him take it and go.
Yeah, thank you. There were some decisions that were made on to whether or not to continue to keep this as a public asset, or if it could be rented out. And so those have been worked through. Part of the grant process with Texas Parks and Wildlife is that you have to that as a public accessible facility for 20 years. So we have been approved for this grant, and the first step is the design portion of the grant. I reached out and I've talked to Texas Parks and Wildlife Division. I've got a request for proposal coming from Shellmark Engineering. Shellmark does a lot of in-water construction. They're familiar with GLO and the permitting process. So there's some permitting costs, there's design, so forth. I've already talked to Marine Inc. He can work from their drawings. We went through the process of gathering some baseline quotes some time ago, and Marine Inc. was most responsive on that. Of course, we're familiar with his work. But what I thought was going to be an easy project gets further complicated by the state requiring a lot of engineering on the front end. They just want to make sure that whatever is installed as a facility is safe and serviceable and can be maintained and stays where it's supposed to be. So right now I'm waiting on that proposal from Shellmark. I reached out to them today, and I think that they are also busy with some with a lot of the damages that have taken place with recent high tides and storms. You know, cities the same way. If you've been down there to the boat ramp at Shell Bottom, you notice that we had it closed off with a dump truck, and that was because the pier got picked up and damaged with high tide, and we had a vessel hit it. Right? And so instead of putting it all back together before the meeting started, I explained I decided not to replace and put a bunch of money into the end of the pier, which required a significant rebuild. Concentrate on the long run in front of the ramp, and we've got that mediated and made safe, and we've got it blocked at the end so you don't step off into oblivion. And we didn't remove all of the structure because I think it was going to be a marine. It would be a problem for mariners coming in if those pilings were under the water and they were unfamiliar with that, they'd run into them. So I didn't want to damage boats. So we left kind of the ugliness, some of the ugliness out there, but it's all tied down, screwed down, and so it won't float away again. So that's where I'm at. And as we down on the EDC budget, that's one of the budgeted items that's in the EDC. So EDC budget item.
Well, let me ask you, Brent, two things. When you say the agreement with the state, say that again. It kind of slipped by me, and I nodded like I understood what you were saying initially, and then realized okay. I didn't. So,
yeah, the state has allowed us to move to the first level, which is the planning grant. So they pay for those engineering costs. Originally, when we applied for the grant, it was limited to 12% of the total project. So 12%, $200,000 was $24,000, and or it was a little less actually, because I think we spec'd out at about $175,000. What they've done is they changed the rules on that, and now the planning grant is 100% reimbursable with no limit up to $250,000. So that will certainly cover our small project, and it would have some out-of-pocket costs, and then we would approach them for reimbursement, and they'd reimburse the city.
Let me ask you, and this is just to clarify my own confusion. It is a City of Clear Lake Shores owned park, correct? Or is it?
Yes.
It's not. Yes. And this only comes back, I know, to that long-standing question about to whom we can deny access or not deny access, and simply because it was a public park, there was no way to restrict access to it, I guess was the answer there.
Correct. As a city asset, you can't restrict access and make it residence or membership only.
Gotcha.
If we moved in that direction, or city council was approached with various options, one of the options was to not allow it to be a city park, but to do a term lease with another entity, allow them to manage it and move forward. And if that happens, then that changes the way that the submerged waters that GLO controls is built out, and it requires them to come out and do some surveys, and they want to make sure that whoever's leasing it is going to be responsible for it. And so after kind of evaluating all of those different subtle, bends in the road, it just made sense to keep it public. Right.
No, and I'm not advocating that. I'm just trying to get it clear in my head what it really was. And then we have $152,000 in the budget, I think is the number now, for those improvements, which we expect to be reimbursed. So specifically, those are improvements. Is it to the ramp itself? Is that an extension of the ramp?
Yeah, what was planned is the ramp surface itself would be it would be layered like a big slab would be precast and moved over the top of the existing ramp. So you wouldn't remove the ramp, you would put another surface on top of it that would extend in to the water. Where it comes out of the water and goes in and transitions to the parking lot, there would be a concrete pad there that would eliminate the turning, the steering wheel, turning action, trucks, cars, whatever, maneuvering, and then when they go to pull out, it wouldn't spin and dig a chuck hole.
Gotcha.
So you'd have those concrete improvements, and then as far as the courtesy docks, you would have 2 courtesy docks, not 1, and the first one would be exactly the same design, same footprint, I guess, from the air as the one that was existing before the damage took place. And the second one would be on the other side of that ramp and would extend out about 3/4 as long and have a similar hook on the end of it. I can't remember if the one that's existing, I want to say, is around 90 feet long, and the one that was going to go in across from it would be like 65 feet. So
Gotcha.
Open, would be like a funnel, and it would allow people to tie off and park their vehicle and then come back out and get it.
And then any improvements to the parking lot other than that concrete pad that you mentioned, or just it'd be primarily?
There was some money set aside to put some additional gravel in there. I know that some people want to have complete paving. There's an advantage to having the gravel there to allow the water to percolate through it. So we don't want to do that. And so we would dress up the surface with
Gotcha.
a gravel product.
Did they address the parking issue? Because I mean, that is a mess when it's busy over there.
Well, originally we looked at some options for trying to find additional land for parking, but that's one thing I can't magically make. I can't make land. So the parking situation will be very similar to what it is now. Hopefully it'll be more clearly defined. So we can maybe place some monuments or things to separate those spots. But yeah, parking is an issue, and it's not a problem that's, I think, going to exist forever. It's been certainly an inconvenience to a lot of city residents and that are used to running over there and using it, and then with the added traffic and wear and tear on the streets and people's side yards and right away and whatnot. But we anticipate that TxDOT's going to be able to work a deal to reinstall or make new ramps over under 146 in similar location that they were before. So they're going to be further west because of all the construction. So they'll have a large ramp, whatever it is, maybe a four ramp spot over there with all that parking. So they're working on that right now.
Brett, I have a question on the parking lot. You mentioned putting some gravel down. Is that going to help mitigate the dust problem that we're currently having, or been having forever?
Probably wouldn't. It would probably, depending on how it dries out, it may be worse. But based on the material that you put down, and we haven't spec'd any of that. It's complete high flyover, trying to guesstimate these costs. So as we go forward, we want something that's going to stay put and allow water to go through it. I think that probably a lot of that dust gets churned up when they're pulling it out and they're doing their turn axles right there at the end of the ramp on a dry day, or if they're speeding out of there. There's going to be the inconveniences of dust. I just can't avoid that right now.
Well, it's my understanding that a lot of that white dust is because they're oyster shell dust. And I've seen on windy days where there's nobody in the parking lot and you're still getting dust clouds. And it's a problem for John Scott next door and for myself as well. So if we can put some kind of gravel like we did up front, maybe, there's no dust issues.
Are you talking about the asphalt millings?
Yes, something along those lines.
It could be.
I think the problem is shell bottoms, oyster shells.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's possible to get away from that, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
So all good. So Brent, then really there's no action for us tonight. It was more just an update. We don't have it.
I was hopeful that I could have an engineering proposal to move forward because they've had it for a week right now, or I placed it with them a week ago to give me a proposal, but as of 5:30 today, I didn't have anything. So
Okay, well, good. So no, that's a great update, and it'll give us some background before we meet then next time. So then if there's nothing else on that topic, we'll move to item number 8, which is discussion and possible action regarding sponsorship of the music for the Clear Lake Shores Civic Club Barbecue Cook-Off on Saturday, October 27th. Mike, if you want to.
I believe the date's wrong on the cook-off.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think it should be the 24th,
Oh, okay.
24th.
but that's okay.
Yeah, so anyway, I was approached by Councilman Mark Thompson about if we could help out with the music portion. They're over their budget, and they want to have a $300 for a Palapa Mac radio to broadcast from there all day, and then have another $300 for a band to play, I believe, that evening. So a total of $600 is what they're requesting. And since we're actually under budget on our jamming this year because we didn't have one concert, so we actually have about 1,500 we could play with. So that's what they're requesting. I'm fine with it. Just want to see where you guys are.
Well, do you want to just go ahead and make that motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we assist the barbecue cook-off for $600 towards their music. All proceeds from that go to the Civic Club anyway.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Joe seconds it. Is there any further discussion? Any questions, concerns about that? Seems.
Yeah, Mike, are they willing to put our logo up or our sponsorship or even the Jammin' on Jarbo banner or anything?
Yeah, I was going to ask that same question, Johnny. Can we get?
So I know they did during the gumbo. Of course, they made, I think, a separate one for the gumbo cook-off, but just something similar, just to.
I didn't talk to them about that, but I'm pretty sure they'd be fine with that. But I'll bring it up.
Okay.
If they make something separate, did you want to make the motion for slightly higher just in case he wants to make a banner?
Well,
Or no?
we don't have a banner that just says, the banner we have now says Jammin' on Jarbo's concert series, so that didn't really work.
Was the one before for the gumbo cook-off, was that individual or is that a specific gumbo cook-off? I don't remember what it looked like when we sponsored that.
I don't remember either, Johnny.
You may want to ask them just to see.
Yeah, I think we just asked them to include our logo and our signage as part of our sponsorship.
I'm okay with that.
So we'll, I don't know if we need to informally amend the motion, but we'll assume that's part of the deal.
Yeah, I'll make sure it happens.
Okay. With that then, all in favor, show of hands, and aye.
All right.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Mike, was there anything on the Soul Freak?
Yes.
Okay, well then go ahead and talk about that then.
Okay, Soul Freak is expanding their deck outside and to increase the seating capacity for out front. And they've actually, they're doubling the seating capacity They're adding an additional 200 square feet. And the cost for that, he's gotten 2 estimates, and they're right around $9,000 each. And he is expecting an increase in revenues of about approximately $6,000 per month by this expansion. So if they're doing more business, providing more sales tax, you know, that's good for us. And so they're asking if we could perhaps help with the cost of that expansion.
So he's asking for us to help him with something that's going to be paid off in about a month and a half.
Well, it's not all profit.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but-
That's not how gross revenues work, Tom. Yeah. No. And I would, and I know we can, and so, Mike, did you have a specific proposal, or you were talking about full reimbursement? Maybe we participate at 50%. I mean, this was a concept that it was the small embryo of an idea 3 days ago. So, you know, it hasn't been fully formed because we didn't know what the amount of money was or what the expectation would be. But
Right.
I would say kind of based on $9,000, maybe we're talking about a 50% participation. Is that reasonable, Mike?
Well, I mean, it's up for discussion, whatever y'all think. I mean, I kind of feel for them a little bit, and they're doing well and they're doing better, and it's a lot of fun to go to their little concerts and stuff, but they're putting money into something, a place that they're leasing.
Yeah.
So that improved deck will be out there forever.
Yeah.
Where is this decking coming from? I mean, I don't understand. I just don't understand. We're like, there's only so much space there. What is it that they're doing?
Okay, if you're standing in the street looking at Soul Freak,
Yeah.
okay, to the right, there's an area that has a little fountain and some rocks. So
Okay.
that fountain's being removed, the rocks are being removed, and then the deck will be built out to, I guess, to the street, or as close as you can get, and then also wrapping around the backside by Schaefer's to the door, that doorway entrance there.
And we'll go ahead and just violate parliamentary procedure here by having discussion on the front end before we ask for the motion. But, you know, there's no justification for it on a mathematical basis, really, because if they increase sales by $6,000 a month, that's $72,000 a year. And so it's about $1,400 a year in sales taxes to the city. That, you know, that doesn't really get us there. Personally, I felt like it was more in the context of additional support of the very small struggling businesses, and Soul Freak adds something to the flavor and culture of the city because it's just a little coffee shop that does music and some cool things there. And they've been flooded, they've dealt with the pandemic. It's a tough time. And, you know, that's a business that on a good day is not very scalable. And so, you know, they're not going to make a ton of money. I mean, it's really, do we like the business? Do we think it adds to the culture and flavor of Clear Lake Shores? And so it's more a quality of life contribution than anything else. I think there's not a real strong economic justification for it.
Is there a way maybe to look at more on the other side and creating more seating area to the left side that would benefit maybe Okies as well?
There's not enough
just-
room.
Well,
What's that?
There's not enough room. They've looked at that as well.
Well,
are we talking about, is this right of way that they're going on? Is this city right of way? Is my first question. My second question is, don't they or we or somebody need permission from whoever owns that property? It's not city.
Well, I assume they've gotten permits from the
I
city.
don't want to assume anything, and I want to see their quotes, but also to know exactly how much that they're paying once we decide on whatever it is we're going to decide on. Not that I don't trust anybody, but I want to make sure that we're not just going off of their word that it's going to be this much. And then, you know, they say it might be 9,000, but what if it comes out to be 12,000 and we've agreed to pay half or whatever? I'd like to see their quotes, and I want to know if it's city right away and if they have permission from the landowner.
I'd like to see more of something that could be expanded into the general area that they could benefit from, you know, maybe get, I don't know, maybe it's covered, more covered seating. I don't know what do we call that area in front of Okies with all the picnic tables and stuff? What's that called?
Well, unfortunately, that's the golf cart parking area. In fact, I had looked at that as an option, but there's a drive approach, and we would have, I mean, you could expand over into that direction. We could do so by narrowing the drive approach off of Clear Lake Road and just giving them some of that, you know, but then that requires an agreement between the city and that entity. And maybe it's just a simple easement, but that is in the golf cart parking area right now.
I mean, do we need the golf area? I mean, why not just park across the street, you know, and just walk?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know that any of these are mutually exclusive. I think that's a consideration. And maybe, Mike, we can come back and maybe we revisit this next time with a more specific plan view of this. We can pull up an aerial and look at this and maybe get a copy of their estimate. I mean, clearly anything that we approved could be subject to their actual expenditures. Maybe it's a cap on the expenditures. They say 9,000. If we wanted to go 50%, and we said, okay, 4,500, a max of 50% of their actual expenditures, as demonstrated by written contracts or proposals or invoices, but not to exceed $4,500, and then confirmation that they had approval of their property owner to do so, though it shocked me if they didn't. But I mean, we could accommodate that in the motion if we want to do that, or we can just visit next time.
Well,
It could be.
also made a good point. We're trying to help a small business. I mean, we could even make it real simple and just say, okay, we'll put $5,000 towards the cost of this expansion based on once the work is finished. And
it could be structured like the facade agreement grant. I mean, that was real simple and basic, and it kind of lined out a lot of the things we just talked about. You know, see invoices and pending approval, and
Well, but then you bring up a good point, Johnny. I mean, do we need to go back to some sort of grant application process or something so that we're not doing all of these kind of one-off ad hoc? There's some formality around it.
we kind of went back and forth on that when we ditched the facade grant, just because I think it was there for years and no one even applied. Well, we had very few applications. So then it almost seemed to make sense to do it on a case-by-case basis just because we had so few applicants. If we were bombarded and there was a lot of businesses that applied and stuff, that'd be a different story. But
yeah, I probably have too much empathy for small businesses in the midst of the pandemic and Laura, that you know, they were flooded out, and those are some pretty hard blows for what is at best a subsistence business. And I think we'd all miss, I don't go there, but I'd miss seeing them if they weren't there. And so I probably err on the side of, you know, wanting to help, but.
okay, well, why don't we table this to next meeting? I'll get with Patrick. He did tell me he could get me some drawings, and I'll get that, and I'll get actual copies of the quotes, as well as permit from the city, or make sure it's not in the right of way or whatever. There's not any issues there.
Great.
Charles, how do you go about looking to see if, getting rid of that golf cart parking area and maybe giving them or making that area common use or something?
I think we can, we'll pull up a Google Earth image of it and kind of do some Adobe Photoshop work on it, and we'll come up with something that makes sense. Yeah. We'll circulate that as well. Good. Well, we'll come back. We'll table this and then come back next time, and I think be better prepared to talk about it. Excellent. Good conversation. Next item then is I have been remiss in not talking about the 2020-2021 budget, but really the good news is Brent was not remiss and has effectively handled that budgeting process as it always is as part of the city budget. I'll circulate that, or Brent, if you want to circulate that budget that you sent me. I didn't want to send that out without your approval, but effectively it's just got a number of placeholders for our typical recurring expenses like jamming and normal operating expenses, and then some placeholders for things like drawer and the Shell Bottom Park improvements, just to make sure that we are anticipating the cash needs. The truth is, as Brent and I were discussing, is that the EDC budget is one where only the smallest portion of our budget, the really immaterial items, are highly predictable. The other stuff we just we're dealing with as it comes up. We don't usually have much visibility to the big items ahead of time, but we'll get that circulated and it's fairly straightforward. I was just remiss in doing that.
Charles, I'll just add, that budget is just part of the approved city budget, and there should be a copy on the website.
Okay, got it.
Adri's working to convert it to a clean PDF right now, so it might be a day or so, but she's working on that and it will appear there, so it's available.
Got it. Then next item is an executive session, and so the executive session is specifically to discuss Drawer Avenue. And so I think the way this works is I need a motion to go into executive session. So will someone make that motion?
I don't think you need a motion. Do you? We don't make motions at council to go into executive session.
By standard parliamentary procedure, you do, but I mean, we don't have to, but we can just go into executive session. But
I will motion to move into executive session.
Okay, then do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Thomas. There being no further discussion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. We're now in executive session. I don't think there's anyone on.
Hey, Charles,